You owe it to yourself to start. Not tomorrow, not when things are perfect, not when you feel ready, right now. Because here's the truth. No one is coming to hand you the life you want. No one is knocking on your door to remind you of your potential. That voice you keep waiting to hear from someone else, the one that says, you're meant for more, that voice has to come from you, and it has to come now. You see, life is short, not in the cliche way we say it, but in the real sense that if you don't move, years pass. You blink and another decade has slipped through your fingers. You keep telling yourself that you'll get to it, that you'll start when you have more time, more money, more clarity, more courage. But you don't realize those things don't show up until you do. Action creates clarity, action creates momentum, and action creates belief. You think confidence comes first? No. Confidence comes after you've done the work, after you've shown up, after you've kept promises to yourself long enough to trust the person in the mirror. And that's where it starts, with you. Not with a new opportunity, not with some stroke of luck, not with someone believing in you. It starts when you decide that your excuses have expired. When you stop blaming your past, your parents, your job, your circumstances. When you say, enough is enough, I'm not waiting anymore. Let me tell you something. There's nothing more powerful than a person who decides to take ownership of their life. Not just the wins, but the losses too. When you realize you are both the problem and the solution, everything changes. Because if it's you holding you back, then it can also be you who sets yourself free. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you'll feel resistance. Yes, you'll doubt yourself. That's normal. But it's not a sign to stop. It's a sign to begin. It means you're stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's where life begins to change. Most people spend their entire lives running from discomfort. But the people who build something meaningful, they run toward it. They do the uncomfortable thing on purpose. They wake up when it's easier to sleep in. They train when their mind says rest. They say no when temptation whispers yes. They don't wait to feel like it. They act because they've committed to something bigger than their feeling. And the most liberating truth you'll ever realize is that you're capable of more. Not just dreaming more, doing more. The same energy you use to doubt yourself, to delay, to scroll, to compare, that same energy could be building your future. But it starts with a decision, quiet one, a personal one. The kind of decision no one else needs to know about. You don't need applause. You don't need approval. You don't even need perfect conditions. You just need a moment of courage, one breath, one choice, one tiny step forward. And no matter how small that step feels today, it counts, because momentum doesn't care about size, it cares about direction. Are you moving forward? Are you building something? Are you showing up for you? You owe it to yourself, not because you're broken, not because you have something to prove, but because you have a life, a one-time, never again, blink and it's gone kind of life. And if you don't fight for it, who will? You owe it to the younger version of you, the one who dreamed big. You owe it to the future version of you, the one who's waiting on you to rise. And most of all, you owe it to the present version of you, the one who's tired of watching life pass by from the sideline. So don't wait for the right time. Take now the right time. Just start, because you owe it to yourself. You want transformation, you want progress, you want a different life? Then understand this truth. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen daily. Most people miss it because they're searching for something loud, something dramatic. They want an explosion of change. But that's not how real success is built. Real progress is quiet. It's found in the small things, the tiny choices, the little habits, the things you think don't matter, but they do. You don't lose weight in a day, you don't write a book in one sitting, you don't build a legacy in a weekend. You do it in moments, in minutes, in the repetition of small actions. When you brush your teeth instead of going to bed angry at yourself. When you say no to the junk food. When you read the page, when you make the call, when you get up instead of hitting snooze. That's where the magic lives. The world keeps trying to sell you the highlight reel. 10x your life in 10 days. Change your mindset instantly. Become rich fast. But the truth? The truth is that greatness isn't built on speed. It's built on consistency. And the people who win in life aren't always the smartest or the luckiest. They're the ones who understood this one powerful principle, compounding. What is compounding? It's the miracle of the long game. It's what happens when you stack effort on top of effort. It's the quiet momentum that builds when you stay faithful to the process, even when you see no reward. It's like planting seeds in a garden, nothing grows right away. But each time you water it, each time you expose it to the sun, each time you take care of it, you are building a result that will one day burst into view. And here's the tragedy, most people quit just before it begins to bloom. Why? Because they can't see the growth, because the change is slow, because no one is clapping for them. But what they fail to realize is that change doesn't need to be seen right away to be real. The roots grow before the tree rises. That's nature, and that's your life too. So here's the question. Can you stay committed even when no one notices? Can you trust the process long enough for it to pay you back? Can you take the next small step even when it feels insignificant? Because let me tell you, every drop of effort matters. Every drop adds to the bucket. And one day, that bucket overflows. People will call it overnight success. You'll know better. You'll know it was every early morning, every lonely workout, every boring decision to show up when you didn't feel like it. That's how empires are built, one brick at a time. You want to change your life? Good. Then stop looking for a leap. Start looking for the next step. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do today that moves me forward? And then do it again tomorrow. And the next day, and the next. Stack enough of those, and you'll look up one day shocked at who you've become. Realize that you didn't need to be extraordinary, you just needed to be committed. You didn't need massive talent, you just needed daily effort. You didn't need the perfect strategy, you just needed the strength to keep going when the results were still invisible. You see, anyone can take one big step once. That's not what separates people. What separates winners from wishers is the person who keeps stepping quietly, daily, faithfully, even when no one's watching. So take the step. Take it tired, take it afraid, take it even when it's small, because that's how big changes are born. And one small step at a time. Dreams are beautiful, inspiring, necessary. But dreams, no matter how big, how meaningful, or how urgent, are nothing without discipline. Discipline is the bridge, the only bridge that connects where you are to where you want to be. It's the quiet, unglamorous force that builds results behind the scenes. It doesn't get the spotlight. It doesn't get praise, but it's always there, carving out greatness, one choice at a time. You can dream all day, and many people do. They build castles in their mind. They visualize success. They talk about what they want to become. But when it's time to act, they hesitate. When it's time to follow through, they vanish. Because discipline requires something most people aren't willing to give. Effort without immediate reward. That's the hard part, isn't it? We live in a world of instant gratification. We want fast results, quick wins. If it takes time, we lose interest. But discipline teaches the opposite. Discipline is about doing what you said you'd do, long after the mood you set it in has passed. It's easy to be excited on day one. Anyone can be motivated when the journey is new. But what about day 20? What about when you're tired? What about when it's raining outside, when your friends are going out? When the bed feels warm and the goal feels far? That's when the real work begins. Discipline doesn't care about how you feel. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't bend to your emotions. It says, get up anyway, show up anyway, do it anyway. And when you do, when you train yourself to act regardless of feeling, you develop something that's more powerful than talent, more powerful than motivation, more powerful than luck: self-respect. Yes, that's what discipline gives you. Because every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you build trust. You prove to yourself that you're someone who follows through. And over time, that identity of being a disciplined person starts to replace your doubts, your fears, your old habits. You stop trying to be disciplined and you become it. Think about this. No one becomes great by accident. You don't stumble into excellence. Whether it's an athlete, a leader, a creator, or a business builder, discipline was behind every ounce of success. They practiced when others rested. They studied when others were distracted. They refined when others were repeating, not because they always felt like it, but because they knew feeling doesn't decide destiny. Discipline does. It's not about being perfect, it's about being persistent. You'll mess up, you'll fall off, you'll miss a day, take a step back, get frustrated. But discipline says we start again, not next week. Now, that's power, that's ownership. That's how you build something that lasts. And here's the part most people miss. Discipline creates freedom. It sounds backwards, but it's true. When you become disciplined, you gain control. You're not a slave to your impulses anymore. You don't react to life, you respond to it. You get to choose your direction instead of being pulled in every direction. Want freedom with your time? Be disciplined with your schedule. Want freedom in your finances? Be disciplined with your spending. Want freedom in your health? Be disciplined with your habits. Freedom without discipline is chaos. It's short-lived. It doesn't last. But freedom with discipline, that's sustainable. That's real. That's earned. So if you've got dreams, and you should, build the bridge. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, but now. And one step at a time, start walking across that bridge. Not with passion alone, but with discipline, quiet, daily, unshakable discipline. Because that's how you take your dream from something you think about to something you live. Excuses feel good. Now let's be honest about that. They feel safe. They let you off the hook. They give you a reason to pause, to delay, to avoid discomfort without guilt. But the truth that stings, the truth we try to run from, is that excuses are nothing more than well-packaged lies. Lies that sound just convincing enough to let us sleep at night. Lies we've rehearsed so often, we start believing them ourselves. I don't have time. I'm just too tired. It's not the right moment. I'll start when things settle down. Other people have more resources than I do. And the most dangerous one of all, I'm just not ready. Let me ask you, when is ready supposed to arrive? What day, what hour, what condition needs to be perfect before you finally give yourself permission to begin? Here's the reality. Ready is a myth. It's a fantasy we chase so we can keep hiding behind fear without admitting we're afraid. Because the truth is, deep down, you're not waiting for the perfect time. You're waiting to not feel scared. You're waiting to be certain. You're waiting for it to be easy. But that moment doesn't come because anything worth doing will always ask you to do it before you feel fully prepared. That's the price of growth. That's the toll to cross the bridge of progress. Excuses are the mind's way of protecting you from failure, embarrassment, pain. They're built on comfort. But here's the cruel joke. Comfort is the cage. The more excuses you make, the more stuck you stay. You become a prisoner not to your circumstances, but to your own rationalizations. The walls around you are not built by your problems. They're built by your reasons for not trying. Now, this doesn't mean life hasn't been hard for you. It doesn't mean you haven't faced real obstacles. It doesn't mean your past hasn't been unfair. But at some point you have to decide, will you let your excuses define your future? Or will you let your determination do it? Because every time you justify staying the same, you trade in your potential for a piece of temporary relief. You buy comfort today at the cost of regret tomorrow. And regret, real regret, isn't about what you did wrong. It's about what you didn't even try to do. You know what hurts the most? Looking back 5 years from now and realizing you're in the same place, not because you weren't capable, but because you kept believing your own excuses. You didn't fail, you froze. You didn't lose, you let go. But here's the powerful part. You can stop anytime. You can decide right now to stop negotiating with excuses. You can stop letting your emotions drive your decisions. You can stop handing over your progress in exchange for one more day of "I'll do it later." You can look yourself in the mirror and say, no more stories, no more delay. If I want more, I've got to do more. It's uncomfortable. It gets raw. It forces you to face your own reflection without filters. But it's honest, and honesty with yourself is the starting line for real transformation. So rip the cover off your excuses, expose them, call them what they are, because once you name them, they start to lose their power. Once you confront them, they shrink. You'll never outgrow your excuses, you have to outwork them. Because the moment you stop feeding them, they starve. People talk a lot about goals. They talk about their dreams, their vision boards, their 5-year plans. And that's fine, it's good to have a target. But what actually creates your future, what actually builds your life, isn't your vision board. It's your daily behavior. Not what you do once. It's not what you say you'll do. Not the effort you make when you're inspired. But what you do consistently, especially when no one's watching, is going to change your life. Then stop looking at the occasional bursts of effort and start evaluating the patterns you repeat every single day. Because that's where your real story is being written. Your habits are either building your future or slowly destroying it. There's no neutral. You are always becoming something. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you're voting for the type of person you will become. And those votes, they come in the form of actions, small decisions, the things you do, not the things you plan. When you get up early and train your body, you vote for health. When you stay disciplined with your budget, you vote for financial peace. When you read, when you study, when you push yourself to grow, you vote for wisdom, knowledge, and confidence. But when you scroll for hours, when you snooze your alarm, when you break your word to yourself, you're casting a vote too. It's not about perfection. No one gets it right every time. But you better believe that your direction is shaped by your default settings, the things you repeatedly do without even thinking. The tragedy is most people never stop to examine their default settings. They keep dreaming about a better future while living through destructive cycles. They tell themselves they'll be successful while continuing to make choices that sabotage their success. And then they wonder why nothing changes. It's not mystery, it's math. What you do daily adds up. It adds up in your body. It adds up in your mind. It adds up in your relationships, your finances, your self-esteem. You don't get to escape the consequences of your patterns. You get to shape them. That's the power. That's the accountability. You are the one crafting your future in the quiet corners of today. You can't expect confidence from a lifestyle that disrespects your potential. You can't expect results from routines that are driven by mood. You can't expect excellence from effort that only shows up when life feels easy. The people you admire, the ones who seem to have it together, who are calm under pressure, who've built something meaningful, they didn't get there with random spurts of effort. They got there by mastering the ordinary. They got there by showing up every day and doing what needed to be done, especially when they didn't feel like it. So what about you? What are you doing every day? Not what are you planning, not what are you hoping. What are you doing? Because that's the truth of your future. It's not waiting on some lucky break. It's not hidden in some secret formula. It's sitting inside your next 24 hours. And then the 24 after that, and the 24 after that. Your future is not a fantasy, it's a reflection. It reflects what you value enough to act on day in and day out. And here's the beautiful part. You can begin shaping that future anytime you want. Not by rewriting your goals, but by redesigning your daily action. Because your dream life isn't built in the moments that feel extraordinary. It's built in the decisions you make when no one's clapping. We live in a world that worships intensity, big moments, viral success. People love stories about someone grinding for 20 hours straight or pulling off a dramatic transformation overnight. That's what gets attention. That's what gets shared. But what gets results, what actually builds a meaningful, sustainable, powerful life, isn't intensity. It's consistency. Intensity is exciting. It gives you that rush. It makes you feel like you're doing something big. But here's the problem. Intensity burns out. It's a fire that rages hard but dies fast if there's no structure to support it. Consistency, on the other hand, is slow. It's unsexy. It doesn't come with a highlight reel, but it builds something that intensity never could: momentum. And momentum is where real growth begins. You can work out like a beast for 1 week, but if you don't show up the next 3 weeks, your body won't change. You can write 10,000 words in a single weekend, but if you never write again, your book won't get finished. You can make a dramatic decision to quit something toxic, but if you don't follow it up with daily discipline, you'll slip right back into the same pattern. Intensity starts the engine, but consistency is what keeps the car moving forward. The difference between successful people and those who fall short isn't found in their moments of passion. It's found in what they do on the days when nothing's exciting. It's easy to be intense when you're motivated, but what about when you're tired, when you're uninspired, when it's raining, when you're stressed, when nobody is watching? That's where consistency shines. It doesn't rely on hype. It relies on decision. You decide to show up. You decide to put in the reps. You decide to stick with the plan, not because it feels good, but because you made a commitment and you've learned to honor your word. Consistency rewires your identity. Every time you do what you said you would do, you reinforce the belief that you're capable, reliable, and in control of your own destiny. It's not about being the fastest, it's about being the one who refuses to quit. You keep showing up. You keep doing the work, even if it's imperfect, even if it's small. And here's what's beautiful about consistency. It compounds. Every small action builds on the one before it. You don't see results at first, that's the test. But day by day, you're stacking bricks. You're creating a foundation. You're building something solid, something that will stand long after others have burned out from chasing intensity. People often say, I just need to get motivated again. No, you don't. What you need is to get consistent. Motivation is a feeling. Consistency is a system. Motivation disappears when life gets hard, but consistency shows up even when life punches you in the face. So instead of trying to do everything at once, do something every single day. Instead of setting massive goals and chasing them for a week, set up habits that you can sustain for a year. Because the real winners, they're not the ones who sprint out of the gate. They're the ones who master the art of daily effort, measured, intentional, and non-negotiable. Your life doesn't change from what you do occasionally with intensity. It changes from what you do repeatedly with consistency. The future belongs to those who are willing to be steady, who are willing to be patient, who understand that progress isn't built in explosions. It's built in quiet, relentless commitment. So don't chase the rush. Build the rhythm. Forget about being intense for a day. Focus on being consistent for a year. That's the difference between momentary excitement and lifelong transformation. That's how real results are made. That's how legends are built, not in a single blazing moment, but in 1,000 steady steps. There's a silent contract we make with ourselves every day, a contract between who we are and who we want to become. And every time you take action toward that version of yourself, you honor that contract. You show up for your dreams. You stand up for your potential. You demonstrate that you're not just hoping things will get better. You're making them better. Because taking action, even the smallest step, is the greatest form of self-respect. When you get up early and work on your goals, you're saying, I matter. When you make the tough choice instead of the easy one, you're saying, my future is worth protecting. When you stop waiting for someone else to rescue you, to motivate you, to give you permission, and instead you take full responsibility, you send a clear message to yourself. I believe in my ability to change my own life. See, we often think of self-respect in terms of how we let others treat us. And that's part of it, no doubt. But the deeper, more transformative level of self-respect comes from how you treat yourself when no one else is looking. Do you keep your promises? Do you show up when it's hard? Do you follow through, not for applause or approval, but because you know your life is worth the effort? Every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, and you know deep down you could have done it today, you chip away at that respect. And it shows. It shows in your confidence, your energy, your self-talk. When you avoid action, you start to believe you're the kind of person who avoids hard things. And that becomes a dangerous story to live by. But the good news? That story can be rewritten. Every action you take is a vote for a new identity. When you do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it, you start rebuilding that respect. You start seeing yourself differently. You stand taller. You think clearer. You feel more in control. Because action is power. And power, when used with integrity, creates momentum. There's something sacred about discipline, something sacred about pushing through discomfort, because you know your potential is more important than your feelings in the moment. That's not punishment. That's self-love in its highest form. It's you refusing to settle, refusing to waste your limited days on earth living below your capacity. When you act, you silence the self-doubt. When you move forward, you quiet the fear. When you take the leap, you stop needing to be perfect, because progress becomes more important than pride. Let's be honest, life is going to test you. There will be seasons where nothing feels easy. There will be moments when the voices in your head try to convince you you're not good enough, not ready enough, not smart enough. But in those moments, action becomes your anchor. It becomes the thing that says, no, I'm not giving in to that narrative. I'm writing my own. People think confidence is something you either have or you don't. But real confidence is earned, it's built, it's developed through action. When you show up day after day and prove to yourself that you can keep going, something shifts inside you. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust, that's the birthplace of transformation. So don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for perfect conditions. They may never come. What you can do, though, what you must do is act. Show up even if it's messy. Move forward even if it's slow. Do it because you matter. Do it because your potential deserves a fighting chance. Because every time you act on your goals, your growth, your values, you're not just checking off a task. You're making a statement. You're saying, I respect myself enough to try. I value myself enough to commit. I believe in myself enough to begin. And that, more than anything, is where personal power is born. So here we are. After all the words, all the insights, all the truths, you're left with one decision. Will you act or will you wait? Because everything you want, the confidence, the growth, the peace, the purpose, it's not locked behind some secret door. It's not waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect version of you. It's waiting on action. Real, simple, consistent action, not for a week, not when it feels easy, but every single day in the ordinary moments that no one else sees. You don't have to be extreme. You don't have to change your whole life in one weekend, but you do have to be consistent. You do have to show up. You do have to honor the commitments you make to yourself. That's how change is built. Not through intensity, but through discipline. Not through hype, but through habits. Not through emotion, but through decision. Every day you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. So cast wisely. Choose courage over comfort. Choose growth over excuses. Choose effort over ease. And above all, choose yourself again and again. Because in the end, your life will not be defined by what you hoped for or what you talked about. It will be defined by what you did, one action, one step, one day at a time. Let that be your legacy. Not perfection, not performance, but progress. Deliberate, determined, and unstoppable.